Episode 2 next week.
Now, Deep Black is a downloadable third-person shooter set in the future where you play a kind of deep-sea diving spy character by the name of Cyrus Pierce, who looks remarkably similar to Isaac Clarke from Dead Space. At the start of the game, Pierce is hired by a private military organisation called Sharon to break into a rival intelligence organisation and try and find out about some sneaky new weapons tech they've been developing.
So far, only episode 1 has been released, and it has 3 chapters to play through. Both the writing and voice acting aren't great, and the intro story setup does very little to get you excited about the mission ahead of you. But you do have your cool Dead Space suit, a harpoon, a subterranean jetpack, and a few guns at your disposal. So you set about swimming and shooting your way through the enemy compound, taking out as many trigger-happy goons and angry robots as you can in the process.
You'll settle into a pretty predictable rhythm as you enter each room, wipe out a wave of enemies, swim through some tunnels and rinse-repeat for the first part of the game, although the water action is surprisingly okay. Underwater droids will attempt to make life difficult for you, but you can use your harpoons, stun guns and melee attacks to take them down, though often this simply requires mashing B repeatedly. You can also perform some nice stealth kills by using your harpoon to pull enemies into the water and, well, knife them in the face.
This game was originally going to be called Underwater Wars, which is a pretty funny title, though I don't think Deep Black is necessarily much of an improvement. Perhaps they changed it because only about half this game is actually underwater, so maybe it was misleading. But being able to have underwater gunfights from behind cover is an interesting spin on the shooter formula. It's just a shame that these levels are so lifeless.
I also thought the cover system was a little bit inconsistent. There's plenty of cover in the open areas where you get fired at by multiple goons, but when moving between rooms, some doors and walls you can take cover behind and others you can't. And often it's a dead giveaway because the option to take cover will only be there if there are going to be enemies in the next room. It comes up with a big button prompt saying press A to go into cover, so you're rarely surprised.
Gunplay is your stock standard stop and pop action with a seriously punishing difficulty spike in the last chapter. Overall, I didn't enjoy the gunplay, or the guns for that matter. You've got this cool futuristic suit that's got an underwater jetpack. Give me some futuristic guns.
Remember, I did like that in certain areas you could reprogram droids to fight for you. I just wish more of that kind of thing had been integrated into the later sections of the game where you actually really needed it. I went insane in the last chapter, Barjo, especially that fracking giant mechanical crab fight.
Giant mechanical crab.
It was just brutal and painfully unforgiving. I rage quit on several occasions, and it just made that last chapter a real chore.
To be honest, this whole game felt like a chore to me. I know it's not a big AAA title, but we've come to expect a certain level from third-person shooters, and it just doesn't have that kind of spit and polish.
My favourite part of this game are the hilariously over-the-top shrieks of death from the enemies. They're brilliant. They're like Wilhelm's ghost returned to die more loudly and melodramatically than before.
They're especially good underwater. And they go on for so long after the enemy has died, and because that AI dialogue repeats so much, you hear them over and over again, which would be annoying if they weren't so funny.
Negative, too high tech.
Overall, I was pretty disappointed with Deep Black. While the locations seem to get a little bit more interesting towards the end, gameplay seems to only get worse. Also, a promo write-up I'd read of this game earlier promised me puzzles. Well, there are no puzzles here unless you count using your harpoon to open a million doors and gates. There's also a multiplayer mode, but I could not for the life of me find a game no matter how hard I tried, so it looks like other people felt the same way as we did about this jaunt into underwater spammy shooterville.
I always feel sorry for the developers when I jump into a multiplayer lobby and there's just no one playing. No one in the world playing this game.
Sounds familiar.
I think their main goal here was to take a shooter and put it underwater and try and do something with that, but they didn't do enough with that mechanic. While I do think they got the movement in the water right, it didn't feel sluggish, which is what I was expecting, but overall it just feels relentlessly bland. I'm giving it 3.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It's 4 out of 10 from me. Now, in keeping with the aquatic theme, Goose wades into an evolution of virtual liquid.